This woman had 6 months to live. He had 6 months to prove he wasn't a monster. But when the cameras stopped rolling, they discovered the entire relationship was built on a lie. What happened next will change how you think about love forever. Dante Hale was 29 years old when he lost everything. Not gradually. Not with warning. In one night, his $4.2 billion empire evaporated like it never existed. The headlines were brutal. Tech Wunderkind exposed as fraud. Hale Technologies collapses in securities scandal. Youngest billionaire falls hardest. His face was everywhere. Not as the genius who revolutionized cloud computing. As the criminal who destroyed thousands of jobs and burned through investor fortunes. The truth was more complicated. His co-founder and CFO, Jax Moreno, had been embezzling for 18 months. Cooking books. Falsifying reports. Creating shell companies. When the SEC came knocking, Jax had already disappeared to a country with no extradition treaty, leaving Dante holding the bag. The board voted him out in 48 hours. The lawsuits came next. Then the asset seizures. The frozen accounts. The criminal investigation. Dante went from flying private to sleeping on a friend's couch in 6 weeks. His penthouse. Gone. His car collection. Auctioned. His reputation. Nuclear waste. He had $10 million left, and $8 million of that was tied up in legal fees. The man who once closed billion-dollar deals couldn't get a meeting at a coffee shop. But the money wasn't the worst part. Dante had built his entire identity on being untouchable. The smartest guy in every room. The one who saw 3 moves ahead. The one who controlled every outcome. And he'd been blindsided by the person he trusted most. It broke something in him. He stopped answering calls. Stopped leaving the apartment. Spent 18-hour days refreshing news articles about himself, watching his life become a cautionary tale in real time. His phone rang on a Tuesday morning at 3 a.m. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. But at 3 a.m., when you've got nothing left to lose, you answer every call. It was Jax, calling from God knows where, voice distorted through some kind of encryption software. I have a proposition for you. Dante should have hung up. Should have called the FBI. Should have told Jax exactly where he could shove his proposition. But he didn't. Because when you're drowning, you don't ask questions about the hand pulling you up. You just grab it. Jax explained the deal. A streaming documentary called The Connection Experiment. 2 strangers, complete opposites, living together for 180 days. Every moment filmed. Every interaction documented. A social experiment about whether real human connection could survive under complete surveillance in the digital age. If Dante made it to the end without quitting, he'd get a $50 million investment to rebuild. Full restoration of his public image. A comeback story the media couldn't resist. The catch? His partner would be someone carefully selected to be his polar opposite. Someone who would challenge every instinct he had. Someone who would make those 180 days absolute hell. And he couldn't know anything about them until day 1. No research. No preparation. No control. Dante had one question. Why would you help me? You destroyed my life. Jax's answer was simple. Because watching you suffer in luxury is better than watching you disappear. Take the deal or don't. You have 48 hours. Dante took the deal. What choice did he have? On the other side of the city, Riley Quinn was writing her will. She was 28 years old. She should have been thinking about career advancement and retirement accounts, and maybe finally getting a dog. Instead, she was deciding who gets her grandmother's ring and whether to be cremated or buried. Her autoimmune disease had progressed faster than anyone expected. The medications stopped working 6 months ago. Her body was attacking itself, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. The experimental treatment existed. It was in clinical trials. It was showing incredible results. It could save her life. It cost $750,000 per year. Not covered by insurance. Not covered by anything except being independently wealthy or having a miracle. Riley was a community outreach coordinator making $42,000 a year. She'd burned through her savings in 4 months. Maxed out 3 credit cards. Started a GoFundMe that raised $8,000 before people stopped sharing it. Her family gave everything they had. Her mom remortgaged the house. Her brother emptied his kids' college fund. It still wasn't enough. Not even close. Her doctor had been gentle when he explained it. She had maybe 6 months. Maybe less. They'd make her comfortable. They'd manage the pain. But without the treatment, her body would continue breaking down until her organs failed. She'd already started saying goodbye. Already written letters to her nieces and nephews to open on their 18th birthdays. Already recorded videos for her best friend's wedding, her brother's 40th birthday. All the moments she wouldn't be there for. She'd made peace with dying young. Or she thought she had. Until a lawyer showed up at her apartment on a Wednesday afternoon with a contract and the most insane proposal she'd ever heard. The same streaming documentary Dante had agreed to. The same 180-day experiment. But Riley's deal was different. Full medical coverage for life, including the experimental treatment. $2 million in a trust fund for her family. $500,000 in cash up front. Untouchable even if she quit. In exchange, she'd live with a stranger for 6 months, let cameras document everything, and pretend the relationship was real for the audience. The lawyer explained it carefully. The show needed authenticity. The viewing numbers depended on people believing the connection was genuine. So Riley couldn't tell anyone it was contractual. Not her family. Not her friends. She'd have to sell it. Make people believe she'd fallen for this person. Make them invest in a love story that was really just a business transaction. Riley had one question. Who's the other person? The lawyer smiled. You'll find out on day 1. And Ms. Quinn? He doesn't know about your condition. That's your information to share or not share. But the cameras will be rolling either way. Riley signed the contract before she'd finished reading it. When you're told you have 6 months to live and someone offers you a chance to survive, you don't negotiate. You just sign. Day 1. The penthouse was massive. 6,000 square feet of marble floors and floor-to-ceiling windows and furniture that looked like it cost more than Riley's annual salary. Cold. Sterile. The kind of place designed to impress, not to live in. Riley walked in with a single duffel bag and immediately felt like she didn't belong. Dante was already there, standing in the living room with a binder. An actual physical binder. He looked exactly like his photos. Sharp jawline. Expensive haircut. Eyes that assessed everything like a threat or an opportunity. He was wearing a suit. At 9 a.m. on a Sunday. In his own apartment. He handed her the binder. I've prepared an operational framework for the next 6 months. Daily schedules, public appearance protocols, social media posting requirements, intimate moment quotas for optimal audience engagement. If you review pages 12 through 18, you'll find the cost-benefit analysis of various relationship milestones and their projected impact on viewer retention. Riley opened the binder. 47 pages. Single-spaced. Color-coded tabs. A Gantt chart showing their relationship progression mapped out day by day for the next 6 months. She read exactly 1 page. Then she closed the binder, walked to the kitchen, and threw it in the trash. I agreed to live with you, not be your employee. Dante stared at her like she'd just set his car on fire. That binder represents 40 hours of strategic planning. Do you have any idea how many variables I accounted for? How many contingencies? I've optimized our trajectory for maximum narrative impact while maintaining plausible emotional authenticity. I don't care. You should care. This experiment succeeds or fails based on execution. Without structure, without planning, we're just 2 people awkwardly coexisting on camera. That doesn't make compelling television. That doesn't get us to 180 days. Riley pulled a Sharpie out of her bag, walked to his pristine white refrigerator, and wrote directly on it. Riley's rules. 1. Separate bedrooms. Separate lives when cameras are off. 2. No public displays of affection without my explicit consent every single time. 3. My medical appointments are off limits. No filming. No questions. No management. 4. I control my own social media. My own narrative. My own image. 5. If you ever try to optimize my life like I'm one of your apps, I walk. Contract or no contract. She capped the marker and looked at him. Those are my terms. You can agree or we can both walk away right now and explain to our respective handlers why we failed on day 1. Dante had not been told no in a decade. Investors said yes. Employees said yes. Women said yes. The entire world had bent itself around his vision because his vision made people rich. And this woman, this complete stranger with messy hair and thrift store clothes and absolutely zero regard for his strategic framework, had just drawn on his refrigerator and threatened to blow up both their deals if he didn't comply. He wanted to argue, wanted to explain why structure mattered, why planning mattered, why his way was objectively better. But he looked at her face and saw something he recognized. Desperation. The same desperation he felt every time his lawyer called with another lawsuit. She needed this deal as badly as he did. Maybe more. Fine. Your rules. But I have one condition. What? You actually try? Not for the cameras. For the deal. We both have too much riding on this to half-ass it. So if we're doing this, we commit. We make it to 180 days. We both get what we need. Deal. Riley held out her hand. Deal. They shook. The cameras captured everything. The producers were ecstatic. The internet went absolutely insane within hours. Billionaire's new girlfriend throws his contract in the trash. Riley Quinn, the woman who said no to Dante Hale. Is this reality show romance already over? The first 2 weeks were brutal. Dante and Riley were oil and water. He woke up at 5 a.m. for optimization routines. She slept until 9 because her medication made mornings impossible. He meal prepped with military precision. She ordered takeout and ate it standing at the counter. He scheduled everything. She moved through life like schedules were suggestions. They fought about the thermostat, about dish placement, about whether the TV remote lived on the left or right side of the couch. Every argument was captured, every annoyed glance, every moment of obvious incompatibility. The comment sections were vicious. This is so fake. They hate each other. He looks miserable. She looks like she'd rather be literally anywhere else. The producers panicked. The streaming numbers were tanking. They'd bet millions on this experiment, and it was dying in real time. Day 15. The producers called an emergency meeting. They needed content. They needed chemistry. They needed Dante and Riley to give the audience something to root for. So they scheduled a series of spontaneous dates. Expensive restaurants. Helicopter rides. Private yacht tours. The full billionaire romance experience. Dante showed up to every single one with his credit card ready. Riley showed up to the first charity gala in a $40 thrift store dress. Dante had bought her a designer gown, had it delivered to her room with a note about maintaining appropriate optics. Riley left it hanging in her closet with the tag still on and wore the dress she'd owned for 3 years. The internet lost its mind. Riley Quinn wears thrift to $1,000 plate gala. Billionaire's girlfriend refuses his money. This woman just became everyone's hero. Dante pulled her aside that night, furious. Do you have any idea how that looked? I'm trying to rebuild my reputation, and you show up looking like you can't afford proper attire. I can't afford proper attire. That's the point. This isn't my world, Dante. I'm not going to pretend to be someone I'm not just to make you look good. This isn't about looking good. It's about strategy. It's about controlling the narrative. No. It's about you needing to control everything because you're terrified of what happens if you don't. But you can't control me. You can't buy me. You can't optimize me. So either accept that or let's end this now. He didn't have a response. Because she was right. For 10 years, Dante had controlled every variable in his life. His company, his image, his relationships. He'd treated people like chess pieces and wondered why he ended up alone. And now he was locked in a contract with someone who refused to be moved. Day 23 changed everything. Riley was scheduled for a morning interview. Some puff piece about her background, her interests, what it's like dating a former billionaire. The cameras were set up in the living room by 7 a.m. Riley was supposed to be camera ready by 8. 8 o'clock came and went. The producers knocked on her bedroom door. No answer. They knocked again. Nothing. Dante finally walked down the hall and opened her door. Riley was in bed, curled into herself, shaking. Her face was gray. Sweat soaked through her sheets. She was trying to speak, but couldn't get words out. He'd never seen someone in that much pain. Get out, he told the producers. Now. Dante, we have a schedule. I said get out. Turn off the cameras. Cancel the interview. Everyone out of this apartment in the next 60 seconds, or I'm calling security. They tried to argue. He didn't care. He physically ushered them out of the penthouse and locked the door behind them. Then he went back to Riley's room and sat on the floor next to her bed. Didn't try to fix it. Didn't ask questions. Just sat with her while she rode out the pain. It took 2 hours for her medication to kick in. 2 hours of Dante sitting in silence, watching this woman he barely knew suffer through something he couldn't understand. When she could finally speak, her voice was barely a whisper. You didn't have to do that. We're gonna lose filming days. They're gonna be pissed. I don't care. You should care. This is your deal. Your comeback. Not like this. Riley looked at him for a long moment. Really looked at him. Not the billionaire. Not the disgraced CEO. Just the man who'd sat with her for 2 hours without asking for anything. Thank you. The producers had left a hallway camera running by accident. It caught the whole thing. Dante ordering them out. The concern on his face. The way he sat with Riley without trying to perform for an audience. The footage leaked within hours. The internet exploded. Dante Hale shuts down production to care for sick partner. Is this romance real? Everyone owes this man an apology. The narrative shifted overnight. Suddenly people weren't watching a train wreck. They were watching two people figure out how to be human together. The streaming numbers tripled. The producers were thrilled. But Dante and Riley weren't performing anymore. Something had changed. Day 30. Riley finally told him. They were sitting on the balcony at 2 a.m. Neither of them could sleep. She'd been trying to figure out how to explain for a week. Finally, she just said it. I'm dying. The autoimmune disease. It's killing me. Without treatment, I have maybe 6 months. That's why I took this deal. The money pays for the experimental treatment. It's the only reason I'm here. Dante didn't react the way she expected. Didn't offer pity or platitudes or false optimism. He just nodded. Does it hurt? What happened the other day? Yeah. It feels like my body is tearing itself apart from the inside. Because it is. How often? The bad flares? Once, maybe twice a week. The constant low-level pain? Every day. And the cameras don't know. The cameras don't know. That's the deal. They know I have a condition. They don't know it's terminal. Dante was quiet for a long time. Then he asked the only question that mattered. What do you need? Not what can I do? Not how can I fix this? Just, what do you need? Riley started crying. She couldn't help it. Because nobody had asked her that. Not once. Everyone had told her what she needed. Rest. Positivity. Faith. Fighting spirit. But nobody had just asked. I need someone to not treat me like I'm already dead. I need someone to see me as a person, not a tragedy. I need to feel like my life still matters, even if it's short. Okay, then that's what we'll do. It's not that simple. Yes, it is. You tell me what you need. I do it. We figure out the rest as we go. Why? Why do you even care? This is a contract. You barely know me. Dante looked out at the city skyline. Because for 10 years, I treated everyone in my life like a transaction. And I ended up with nothing. No real friends. No real relationships. Just people who wanted something from me. You're the first person in a decade who doesn't want anything except to be treated like a human being. So yeah, I care. Day 40. The experimental treatment started. Riley's medical team worked with the production company to film around her appointments. But Dante insisted on going with her. Every infusion. Every checkup. Every moment she needed someone. The cameras caught some of it. Most of it. They didn't. He'd learned which hallways didn't have coverage, which waiting rooms had blind spots, how to shield her from the constant surveillance when she needed privacy. The treatment was working. Slowly, her flares became less frequent. The constant pain started to ease. She had energy for the first time in 2 years. Could walk more than a block without exhaustion. Could eat without nausea. Could imagine a future past next month. And through all of it, Dante was there. Not managing. Not optimizing. Just present. Day 58. They had their first real fight. Not for the cameras. Not staged. Real. Riley found out Dante had paid off her family's medical debt. $140,000. Just wire transferred the money without asking. Without warning. She was furious. You had no right. That was my debt. My responsibility. Your responsibility? You were dying. Your family was bankrupting themselves trying to save you. I had the money sitting there doing nothing. That's not the point. You don't just throw money at people's problems without asking. That's not care, Dante. That's control. That's you deciding what I need instead of asking me. I was trying to help. No. You were making yourself feel better. You were solving a problem so you didn't have to sit with the discomfort of watching me struggle. But my struggles aren't yours to fix. My life isn't yours to manage. And if you can't understand the difference, then we have a serious problem. She locked herself in her room for 2 days. Wouldn't film. Wouldn't eat with him. Wouldn't acknowledge his existence. The producers were losing their minds. Dante was losing his mind. He'd thought he was doing the right thing. Thought he was being supportive. And instead, he'd violated the one boundary she'd set from the beginning. Don't try to optimize my life. On day 3, he slipped a note under her door. Just one sentence. You're right. I'm sorry. I'm not good at this. Teach me. Riley opened the door. They talked for 4 hours. About boundaries. About autonomy. About the difference between support and control. About how Dante's entire life had been built on the idea that every problem had a solution, and love required accepting that some things can't be solved, only witnessed. It was the first real conversation they'd ever had. No cameras. No performance. Just two people trying to understand each other. Day 70. Riley took him to one of her community outreach events. A free health clinic in the Bronx. No cameras. No press. No producers. Just volunteers and people who needed help. Dante showed up in a $5,000 suit because he didn't own anything else. Immediately felt ridiculous. But he stayed. Helped organize donation boxes. Talked to families about resource access. Listened to a grandmother explain how she was rationing insulin because she couldn't afford her prescriptions. On the subway ride home, Riley held his hand. First time she'd initiated physical contact. Thank you for showing up today. I didn't do anything. Yes, you did. You left your world and entered mine. You didn't have to do that. Dante looked at their hands intertwined. I like your world better than mine. Day 95. Riley's best friend cornered her after a coffee date. You're in love with him. And don't lie to me. I've known you since we were 12. I can see it. Riley tried to deny it. Failed spectacularly. Because she was in love with him. Had been for weeks. And it was the worst possible thing that could have happened. Because in 85 days, this ended. The contract expired. Dante got his $50 million and his reputation back. She got her health. They'd both walk away to their separate lives. That was the deal. That was always the deal. But how do you walk away from someone who learned how to care just by being near you? How do you leave someone who sits with you through pain without trying to fix it? How do you say goodbye to the person who made you believe your life was worth living even when your body was dying? She couldn't. But she'd have to. Because the contract said so. Day 112. Dante took Riley to his childhood home in Queens. A tiny row house his mother still lived in. He'd never brought anyone here. Not investors. Not business partners. Not women he'd dated. This was separate. Sacred. The place he came from before the money and the empire and the fall. His mother opened the door and immediately pulled Riley into a hug. Finally, I told him he needed to bring you. Come in, come in. Are you hungry? Of course you're hungry. She bustled Riley inside before Dante could even say hello. The house smelled like home cooking and old books and safety. Everything his penthouse wasn't. Over dinner, his mother told stories. About young Dante, the scholarship kid who tutored other students for free. Who fixed neighbors' computers and refused payment. Who promised he'd take care of everyone once he made it. Riley watched Dante squirm as his mother showed her embarrassing photos and revealed every childhood secret. She loved every second of it. After dinner, while Dante helped his mother with dishes, she pulled Riley aside. He's different with you. Softer. More like the boy he used to be before the world got to him. He forgot that boy. Until you. She squeezed Riley's hand. Thank you for reminding him. That night, on the penthouse balcony, Riley asked the question she'd been avoiding. What happens on day 181? Dante stared out at the city. I don't know. The contract ends. We go back to our lives. You rebuild. I stay healthy. We both got what we needed. Is that what you want? I don't know what I want anymore. This wasn't supposed to be real. It was supposed to be 6 months of pretending, and then we'd both walk away. But it is real. At least for me. And I don't know how to walk away from real. Dante turned to look at her. Then don't. It's not that simple. Why not? Because you have a life to rebuild. An empire to reclaim. And I have a disease that's never going away. I'll always be sick. I'll always need treatment. I'll always be a complication. You didn't sign up for that. You're right. I didn't sign up for it. But I'm choosing it now. I'm choosing you. If you'll let me. Riley kissed him. First time. Real kiss. Not for cameras. Just two people who'd accidentally fallen in love inside a contract that was never supposed to mean anything. Day 125. They didn't tell the producers about the shift. Kept it private. But the cameras caught it anyway. The way they looked at each other. The casual touches. The inside jokes. The comfort. The viewing numbers went through the roof. The internet was obsessed. Dante and Riley are endgame. This is the most beautiful love story of the year. If they don't end up together, I'm rioting. The producers saw an opportunity. Called a meeting on day 140. Dante and Riley sat in the conference room, surrounded by executives and lawyers and marketing people. The pitch was simple. The show was massive. Bigger than anyone expected. The numbers were record-breaking. They wanted to renew for a second season. Another year. Another $100 million deal for Dante. Full medical coverage for Riley plus a $10 million bonus. One condition. They had to get married. On camera. A full televised wedding special. The ultimate reality TV moment. The billionaire and the dying girl finding love. The redemption and the salvation. The perfect story. Riley felt sick. Dante saw the trap immediately. The moment they said yes, their relationship stopped being theirs. It became content. Product. Something to be packaged and sold and consumed. Every milestone would be negotiated by producers. Every fight would be scheduled for optimal drama. Their entire lives would become a performance. He looked at Riley. She looked at him. They didn't need to discuss it. No. The room went silent. No. No. We're finishing the 180 days as contracted. Then we're done. No renewal. No wedding special. No second season. The head producer leaned forward. You understand what you're walking away from? $100 million. Guaranteed medical coverage. Global fame. This is the opportunity of a lifetime. We understand. The answer is still no. Dante, be smart about this. Your reputation is finally recovering. You say no to us, we can destroy that. We have enough footage to make you look however we want. Walk away, and we'll make sure the world remembers why you fell in the first place. Riley stood up. Are you threatening us? I'm explaining reality. This industry works on relationships. You burn us, we burn you. Simple as that. Dante stood up next to Riley. Then I guess we're getting burned. Come on. We're leaving. They walked out. Left the conference room. Left the building. Went back to the penthouse and waited for the fallout. It came fast. The network released a statement. Dante Hale and Riley Quinn were ungrateful. Difficult. Had violated the spirit of their contract by refusing to continue giving audiences the content they deserved. The comment sections turned vicious overnight. They sold out. It was all fake anyway. Dante's showing his true colors again. But worse than the public backlash was the private threat. The experimental treatment company contacted Riley's medical team. The coverage was contingent on her participation in the show. She walked away. She lost access to the medication keeping her alive. They gave her until day 180 to change her mind. After that, she was on her own. Day 141. Riley and Dante sat in the living room, countdown clock still ticking on the wall. 39 days left. She was trying not to panic. Trying to figure out how to afford $750,000 a year. Trying to accept that maybe this was it. Maybe she got 6 more months of health, and then back to dying. Dante was on his phone. Quiet. Focused. She'd learned that look. He was solving a problem. She wanted to tell him to stop. That this wasn't something he could fix. But she didn't have the energy to fight. 3 hours later, he set his phone down. It's handled. What's handled? Your treatment. I called your medical team. Set up a direct payment plan. You're covered. In perpetuity. No matter what happens with the show. Dante, you can't afford that. You have $10 million and most of it is tied up in legal fees. I liquidated everything. Sold the penthouse. Sold the art. Sold every asset I had left. Put it all into an irrevocable trust that pays your medical expenses for life. You're covered. Riley couldn't breathe. You sold your home. It was just a place. You're a person. Easy choice. That was everything you had left. That was your safety net. How are you going to rebuild without capital? I'll figure it out. I always do. But you're not dying because I couldn't let go of some overpriced real estate. That's not happening. Riley started crying. Not sad crying. Overwhelmed crying. Because this man had just given up everything for her. Not to control her. Not to fix her. Just to make sure she survived. You're insane. Probably. But I'm insane about you. So we're both stuck with it. Day 149. Jack showed up at the penthouse. Dante hadn't seen him since the phone call that started everything. Hadn't spoken to him. Hadn't heard from him. And now here he was, standing in the living room like he'd never left. Like he hadn't destroyed Dante's entire life. We need to talk. We really don't. Get out. Dante, please. Just listen. You have 60 seconds before I call security. Start talking. Jack sat down without being invited. Looked at Dante with something that might have been regret or might have been manipulation. Hard to tell with Jack's. The experiment was never about your redemption. It was about revenge. What? 5 years ago, you fired my sister. You remember? She was a junior developer. Found safety violations in the server infrastructure. Tried to blow the whistle internally. You shut her down. Fired her to protect the company's image. Made sure she couldn't find work anywhere in tech. She couldn't handle it. Couldn't handle being blacklisted. Couldn't handle watching her career evaporate because she tried to do the right thing. Dante felt cold. He remembered. Sarah Moreno. Brilliant coder. Huge liability. He'd made a calculation. Her ethics versus the company's valuation. The company won. It always won. What happened to her? She killed herself. 6 months after you fired her. Left a note that said she couldn't live in a world where doing the right thing got you destroyed. Jax's voice cracked. She was my only family. The only person who mattered. And you took her from me like she was nothing. Jax. So I took everything from you. Embezzled for 18 months. Set you up for the fall. Watched your empire burn. And it still wasn't enough. Because you were still you. Still cold. Still calculating. Still treating people like variables in an equation. So I set up one final humiliation. The experiment. I was going to force you to play the caring boyfriend and then expose you. Show the world you were incapable of genuine human connection. Prove you were the monster I knew you were. Why are you telling me this? Because I was wrong. You changed. You actually changed. And I don't know what to do with that. Jax stood up. Pulled out a flash drive. Set it on the coffee table. That's all the footage. Every frame from every camera. Every private moment. Every real conversation. It's all there. I'm giving it to you. Do whatever you want with it. Release it. Bury it. I don't care anymore. Why? Because my sister would have hated what I became. She believed in second chances. In redemption. In people's capacity to change. And you actually did it. You became the person she thought everyone could be. So I'm done. I'm walking away. And I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Jax left. Dante stood in the empty apartment, holding a flash drive containing 6 months of his life. Riley came out of her room. She'd heard everything. Are you okay? I don't know. I destroyed his sister. Destroyed her life. And I don't even remember making the decision. She was just a problem to solve. God, I was a monster. Was. Past tense. You're not that person anymore. How do you know? Because that person wouldn't have sold his last asset to keep a stranger alive. That person wouldn't have learned to care. You changed, Dante. You actually changed. Day 150. Riley left. Packed her duffel bag. Took her medication. Walked out of the penthouse without saying goodbye. Dante found her note on the kitchen counter. Just 3 sentences. You gave up everything for me. But you shouldn't have had to. You deserve a life that isn't a complication. Take care of yourself. He didn't chase her. Every instinct screamed at him to chase her. To find her. To convince her. But he'd learned something in the last 5 months. Love isn't about control. It's about respect. And Riley had made a choice. Chasing her would just be another form of trying to manage her life. So he let her go, even though it destroyed him. Days 151 through 180. The longest month of Dante's life. He finished the contract. Did the final interviews. Smiled for the cameras. Played the part. The show wrapped. The finale aired. The internet had opinions. Some people thought he'd been abandoned. Some thought he'd driven her away. Most just wanted to know if they were still together. Dante didn't answer. Kept Riley's privacy. Kept their story to himself. The $50 million investment came through. He could have rebuilt. Could have started another company. Could have reclaimed his empire. He didn't. He used the money to start a foundation. Chronic illness advocacy. Medical expense assistance. Support programs for people who couldn't afford treatment. Named it after Jax's sister. Sarah's fund. A small way to pay back a debt he could never actually repay. He volunteered at Riley's old health clinic. Showed up every week. Helped organize supplies. Talked to patients. Learned everyone's names. Built something smaller than an empire. Something that actually mattered. And every single day, he thought about Riley. Wondered if she was okay. Wondered if she ever thought about him. Wondered if she'd ever come back. Day 180. The contract officially ended. The countdown reached 0. Dante was at the clinic, helping a teenager fill out insurance paperwork, when someone tapped his shoulder. He turned around. Riley was standing there. Looked healthier. Stronger. Alive. You didn't come after me. You didn't want to be chased. You're right. I didn't. She held out a piece of paper. The original contract. Every clause crossed out. New terms written at the bottom in her handwriting. No expiration date. No cameras. No audience. No contracts about how we're supposed to feel or what we're supposed to be. Just 2 people who choose each other every single day. Equal partners. If you agree, sign here. Dante took the paper. Read every word she'd written. His hands were shaking. Why did you come back? Because I spent 30 days trying to convince myself I was protecting you. That walking away was the selfless thing. That you deserved someone uncomplicated. Someone easy. Someone who wouldn't need experimental treatments and bad pain days and a future that's always uncertain. She stepped closer. But that's not love. That's fear. Love is believing someone when they choose you. Love is trusting that they know what they're signing up for. And you've been choosing me since day 23 when you kicked the cameras out. So I'm choosing you back. If you still want me. I never stopped wanting you. Then sign the contract. Dante pulled a pen from his pocket. Signed his name right below hers. No hesitation. No lawyers. No negotiation. Just two people agreeing to build something real. What now? Now we live. We work. We figure it out as we go. I'm probably going to have bad health days. You're probably going to slip back into control freak mode sometimes. We're going to fight. We're going to mess up. But we do it together. As partners. Deal. Deal. They didn't kiss dramatically. Didn't make grand declarations. Riley just took his hand and said, "Okay, show me what you've been working on." He showed her the foundation. The programs they'd built. The people they'd helped. Riley cried when she saw her old clinic had a new wing funded by Sarah's fund. Cried harder when she met the families who'd gotten treatment they couldn't afford. You did this. We did this. Your ideas. Your clinic. Your community. I just wrote the checks. That's not nothing. It's not everything either. But it's a start. They spent the rest of the day at the clinic. Working side by side. No cameras. No producers. No countdown clock. Just two people building something that mattered. That evening, they went back to Dante's new apartment. Not a penthouse. Just a normal two-bedroom in Brooklyn. Close to the clinic. Close to real life. Close to the person he'd become. Riley looked around. Saw plants on the windowsill. Photos on the fridge. A couch that looked lived in. This is so different from the penthouse. Good different or bad different? Good different. Really good different. It looks like someone actually lives here. Someone does. And now someone else could. If she wants. Riley set her duffel bag down. I want. 3 months later, they were sitting in the foundation office, reviewing grant applications, when Dante's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. But old habits. He picked up. It was Jax. I'm calling to tell you I'm turning myself in. To the FBI. For the embezzlement. For the fraud. All of it. I'm done running. Jax. Let me finish. I'm also testifying that you had nothing to do with it. I'll give them everything. Prove you were set up. Clear your name completely. It won't give you back the 2 years you lost, but it's something. Why? Because Sarah would have wanted me to. Because you're doing the work she believed in. And because I'm tired of being the person who destroyed everything she loved. He paused. Take care of Riley. She's good for you. Better than you deserve. But then again, that's kind of her specialty. The line went dead. Dante sat there, phone in hand, processing. Riley looked up from her laptop. Who was that? Jax. He's turning himself in. Going to clear my name. How do you feel about that? I don't know. Relieved? Sad. He destroyed my life, but he also saved it. If he hadn't set up the experiment, I never would have met you. Never would have changed. I'd probably still be sleeping on someone's couch, drowning in bitterness. So you're grateful to the man who embezzled millions from your company and framed you for securities fraud. When you say it like that, it sounds insane. It is insane. But that's life. Nothing simple. People are complicated. We hurt each other and save each other sometimes in the same breath. She closed her laptop, came around the desk, sat on his lap. For what it's worth, I'm grateful too. I wouldn't have chosen to get sick. Wouldn't have chosen to nearly die. But if I hadn't, I never would have met you. Never would have learned that I'm worth more than my productivity. Never would have believed someone could love me on my worst days. Someone can. Someone does. I know. And that's the insane part. The beautiful, impossible, insane part. 6 months after that, they got married. Small ceremony. Just family and close friends. No cameras. No press. No streaming special. Riley wore a simple dress from a local boutique. Dante wore the suit his mother had saved from his high school graduation. They wrote their own vows. Promised to choose each other on the hard days. To communicate even when it was uncomfortable. To build a partnership, not a performance. To love each other as humans, not as ideas. Dante's mother cried through the entire ceremony. Riley's brother made a speech about how Dante was the first person his sister let take care of her. The foundation staff came. The clinic volunteers came. People whose lives had been changed by Sarah's fund. It was small and messy and perfect. Everything their relationship had been from the start. The reception was at the community center where Riley used to work. They served food from local restaurants, played music from someone's Spotify playlist, danced in a room that smelled like coffee and old books and hope. At the end of the night, Riley pulled Dante onto the fire escape. They sat under the Brooklyn sky, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist. I can't believe we almost walked away from this. Which time? You walked away once. I almost walked away about 40 times in the first month. Fair point. I mean the big picture. We almost let fear win. Almost let the contracts and the cameras and other people's expectations destroy something real. But we didn't. She turned to look at him. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me we'll keep choosing this. Even when it's hard. Even when we're tired. Even when it would be easier to retreat into old patterns. Promise me we'll keep showing up. I promise. Every single day. For the rest of our lives. However long that is. It's going to be long. The treatment's working. My last checkup was the best one yet. Doctors are cautiously optimistic I could have decades. Decades with you sounds like the best deal I've ever made. Better than $1 billion company. So much better it's not even close. 1 year later, Riley's health was stable. The disease wasn't gone. It never would be, but it was managed. Controlled. She had good days and bad days. Dante had learned to recognize the signs. Learn when to push her to rest, and when to let her push herself. Learned that supporting someone wasn't the same as managing them. It was harder, required more trust, more communication, more willingness to sit with discomfort. But it was real, and real was worth the difficulty. The foundation expanded. They opened 3 more offices, hired a full staff, helped thousands of people access treatments they couldn't afford. Every person who walked through their doors, Dante thought about Riley, about how close he'd come to never knowing her, about how one rigged experiment had accidentally saved both their lives. Jax served 18 months, got out on good behavior, came to the foundation office the day he was released, stood in the lobby, looking uncertain for the first time Dante had ever seen. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I'm trying to be better. Volunteering. Therapy. Trying to be the person Sarah thought I could be. Dante looked at the man who destroyed his empire and inadvertently given him everything that mattered. The foundation could use someone with your financial expertise. If you're interested, it doesn't pay much. I'm interested. Okay, you start Monday. And Jax, thank you for everything. Even the parts that nearly killed me. You're insane. Yeah, but I learned from the best. 2 years in, Riley got pregnant. It was complicated. High risk. The doctors weren't sure how her body would handle it. She was terrified. Dante was terrified. They held each other through every appointment, every test, every moment of uncertainty. The pregnancy was hard. Riley spent weeks on bed rest. Had 3 separate scares that sent them to the emergency room at 2 a.m. But she was strong. Stronger than anyone gave her credit for. Their daughter was born on a Tuesday morning in March. 6 pounds, 3 ounces. Perfect. They named her Sarah. After the woman whose death had set everything in motion. After the catalyst none of them had chosen, but all of them had survived. Riley held her and cried. Dante held both of them and couldn't speak. His mother visited that afternoon. Looked at her granddaughter and smiled. She has your eyes. Both of you. She's going to be stubborn and brilliant and impossible. Just like her parents. We're in so much trouble, Riley laughed. The best kind of trouble. Sarah grew up in the foundation office. Learned to walk between desks covered in grant applications. Learned to talk by listening to her parents help people navigate insurance systems and treatment options. By the time she was 4, she knew more about chronic illness advocacy than most adults. She'd sit in board meetings with her coloring books and occasionally offer opinions that were shockingly insightful for a preschooler. Why don't the insurance companies just help people? She asked once. The entire board went silent. Finally, Jax answered. That's the question, kiddo. That's the question we're all trying to answer. 5 years after the experiment ended, a documentary crew reached out. Wanted to do a Where Are They Now special. Dante and Riley declined. Their story wasn't for consumption. Wasn't for entertainment. It was theirs. Messy and complicated and private and real. They'd learned that lesson the hard way. Some things aren't meant to be watched. They're meant to be lived. But they did agree to one interview. for a medical journal, about Riley's treatment, about long-term autoimmune disease management, about how experimental treatments could change lives if only people could access them. That interview led to policy changes, led to insurance companies expanding coverage, led to more people getting the help they needed. It wasn't flashy, wasn't viral, but it mattered, and mattering was enough. 10 years later, Sarah was in middle school, brilliant and stubborn and impossible, exactly like her grandmother predicted. She came home one day with a school project. We have to interview someone who changed careers. I want to interview Dad. Dante looked up from his laptop. I didn't really change careers. I just stopped chasing money and started chasing meaning. That's a career change, Dad. A big one. The biggest one. So she interviewed him, asked him about Hale Technologies, about the fall, about the experiment, about everything he'd lost and everything he'd gained. At the end, she asked one final question. Do you regret any of it? The company? The success? Would you go back if you could? Dante looked at Riley, helping their daughter with her homework at the kitchen table. Looked at the photos on their fridge, Sarah's art, family vacations, clinic volunteers, foundation milestones. Looked at the life they'd built from the wreckage of his old one. No, I wouldn't go back. Because going back would mean never meeting your mom, never having you, never learning that success isn't about how much you have. It's about how much you give. And I like who I am now better than who I was then. Even though you lost billions of dollars? Especially because I lost billions of dollars. Turns out I needed to lose everything to find what actually mattered. Sarah typed that into her laptop. Smiled. That's a good answer, Dad. Very documentary worthy. Absolutely not. No documentaries. We have a rule. I know. Some stories aren't meant to be consumed. They're meant to be lived. She rolled her eyes in that way only middle schoolers can. You guys are so dramatic. Riley laughed. Says the girl who cried for an hour when we wouldn't let her adopt a fifth rescue cat. That was different. Mr. Whiskers needed a home. We already have 4 cats. Exactly. He would have fit right in. Dante watched them bicker, feeling something he'd never felt in his old life. Peace. Contentment. The quiet knowledge that this messy, complicated, imperfect life was everything he'd been chasing without knowing it. The billion-dollar empire had been impressive, but this was real. And real was worth more than any valuation. 15 years after the experiment, Dante and Riley were sitting on their porch, watching Sarah leave for college. She'd gotten into every school she applied to. Chose the one with the best chronic illness advocacy program. I want to do what you do, she told them. Help people who can't help themselves. Make the system better. Change things. They tried not to cry. Failed spectacularly. Now they sat in the silence she left behind, holding hands, processing the fact that their daughter was grown. That time had moved faster than they'd realized. That the 6 months they'd thought would be the end had turned into 15 years and counting. Do you ever think about it? Riley asked. The countdown clock. The cameras. How it all started. Sometimes. Usually when I'm trying to explain to someone how we met, and I realize the truth sounds completely insane. We signed a contract to fake a relationship for money and accidentally fell in love for real. It does sound insane when you say it out loud. Everything good in my life sounds insane when I say it out loud. Billionaire loses everything, agrees to fake date a dying woman. She doesn't die. They get married and have a kid and start a nonprofit. It's like a bad romance novel. Hey, it's like a good romance novel. Bad romance novels don't have realistic chronic illness representation. Fair point. They sat in comfortable silence. 15 years together. Hundreds of bad days and thousands of good days. Fights and makeups and compromises and growth. Riley's health had stayed stable. Some years better than others. But stable. Managed. She'd beaten the 6-month prognosis by over a decade. And every year past that deadline felt like a gift. Thank you, Dante said quietly. For what? For coming back. For signing that contract. For choosing me. For teaching me how to be human. You were always human, Dante. You were just scared. We both were. Still am sometimes. Me too. But we're scared together. That's the difference. 20 years after the experiment, they got the call. Jax had died. Heart attack. Quick. He'd been volunteering at the foundation's newest location when it happened. Had spent the last 20 years rebuilding himself. Making amends. Becoming the person his sister would have been proud of. The funeral was small. Jax had never remarried. Never had kids. The foundation staff was his family. Dante gave the eulogy, talked about betrayal and forgiveness, about how the worst thing that ever happened to him had led to the best thing, about how Jax had destroyed him and saved him in the same breath, about how human beings contain multitudes, capable of tremendous harm and tremendous healing, sometimes simultaneously. Jax Moreno was not a good man, but he became a better one. And maybe that's all any of us can hope for. Not perfection, just progress. Not erasing our mistakes, just learning from them. Jax taught me that lesson, and I'm grateful, even for the parts that nearly destroyed me, especially for those parts. After the funeral, they scattered Jax's ashes in the community garden behind Riley's old clinic, the place where it had all started, where desperate people came looking for help, where second chances grew like weeds in the cracks of a broken system. It felt right. Jax had spent his life trying to fix what he'd broken. This was where that work lived. 25 years later, the foundation had helped over 50,000 people. Sarah had taken over as executive director, had expanded the mission to include mental health services, housing assistance, job training, had turned her parents' small nonprofit into a national organization. Dante and Riley stepped back, let the next generation lead, spent their time volunteering, traveling, enjoying the decades Riley had been told she'd never have. They went back to the penthouse once. It had been converted into luxury condos. They stood on the street, looking up at the windows where they'd spent those first 180 days. Feels like a different life, Riley said. It was a different life. We were different people. Do you miss him? The old Dante. Not even a little bit. He was successful, but he was empty. I'd take messy and full over successful and empty any day. Good answer. She kissed him. 25 years together, and it still felt new. Still felt chosen. Still felt like the best decision either of them had ever made. They walked away from the penthouse hand in hand. Back to their Brooklyn apartment. Back to their real life. The one they'd built together. The one no one was watching. The one that mattered. 30 years after the experiment, Riley got sick again. The disease that had been dormant for decades came back. Aggressive. Fast. The treatments that had worked before weren't working anymore. The doctors gave her 6 months. Again. History repeating itself in the cruelest way. Dante sat with her through every appointment. Every treatment. Every bad day. He'd gotten good at this over the decades. Knew when to push and when to back off. Knew how to support without controlling. Knew how to be present without being performative. But knowing didn't make it easier. Didn't make watching the person you love suffer any less devastating. I'm not scared, Riley told him one night. I've had 30 more years than I was supposed to. Watch my daughter grow up. Changed thousands of lives. Loved you longer than I ever dreamed possible. If this is it, I'm okay with it. I'm not okay with it. I know. But you will be. You're stronger than you think. I don't want to be strong. I want you. You have me. You'll always have me. Even when I'm gone. She lasted 8 months. Fought harder than anyone expected. Dante was with her at the end. Holding her hand. Telling her stories about their life together. About the foundation. About Sarah's work. About everything they'd built. She smiled. Squeezed his hand. And let go. Dante Hale had lost everything twice in his life. Once when his empire collapsed. Once when Riley died. The first time had broken him. The second time hurt more than anything he'd ever experienced. But it didn't break him. Because Riley had taught him how to survive loss. How to sit with pain without trying to solve it. How to grieve without giving up. How to keep living even when living hurt. He kept working. Kept volunteering. Kept showing up. Because that's what Riley would have wanted. That's what their life together had been about. Showing up. Choosing each other. Choosing the work. Choosing to matter. The foundation grew. Sarah expanded it further. Added new programs. Helped more people. Riley's legacy lived in every person they helped. In every treatment they funded. In every life they saved. 5 years after Riley died, Dante was speaking at a medical conference about chronic illness advocacy. He was 71 years old. Gray-haired. Slower. But still sharp. Still passionate. Still fighting for the work that had given his life meaning. After the speech, a young woman approached him. Early 20s. Sick. Scared. My doctors told me I have 6 months. I can't afford the treatment I need. I don't know what to do. Dante looked at her and saw Riley. Saw himself. Saw every person who'd ever been told their life wasn't valuable enough to save. You come to the foundation. We'll figure it out. We always do. I can't afford. You don't have to. That's the point. That's what we do. We help people who can't help themselves. Because someone once helped me when I couldn't help myself. The young woman started crying. Dante handed her a tissue, got her information, connected her with the foundation's intake team, made sure she got what she needed. It wasn't dramatic, wasn't performative, just one person helping another, the way Riley had helped him, the way they'd helped each other. That night, Dante went home to his empty apartment, looked at the photos on his walls. Riley smiling, Sarah graduating, foundation milestones, a life fully lived. He missed Riley every single day, but he wasn't empty, because she'd taught him how to be full, how to care, how to love, how to matter. He'd been a billionaire once, lost it all, built something better, lost that too. But he wasn't broken. He was just human, messy and complicated and imperfect. And that was enough. It had always been enough. Riley had shown him that, and he'd spend the rest of his life proving she was right. So here's the question that haunts every love story. If you could go back to the beginning, knowing everything that would happen, the pain, the loss, the heartbreak, would you still choose the same path? Would you still sign that contract? Would you still fall in love with someone you knew you'd have to lose? Dante's answer was always yes. Because 30 years of real love was worth more than a lifetime of safety. Because messy and full was better than perfect and empty. Because some contracts are meant to be broken, and some love stories are meant to be lived, not watched. If this story moved you, if it made you think about what really matters, hit that subscribe button. We share true stories about love, loss, and what it means to be human every single week. Leave a comment telling us, what's the bravest choice you've ever made for love? Let's talk about it. And don't forget to hit the bell so you never miss a story that might change how you see the world. Because stories like this, they're not just entertainment. They're reminders that we're all trying to figure out the same thing. How to love, how to matter, how to leave the world better than we found it. See you in the next one.